Hello there, it's James B. This is my podcast every Friday. This week I'm talking to Gordon Smith. He wrote a book called Unmasked. He is a special effects wizard, and he has been working on films, everything from X-Men to Dixon. And he's going to talk about the special effects he's done, the industry. This is a tell-all book. In fact, there's so much gossip and juice in this, 2 volumes. You can get these online, and he's going to be up in just a minute. First, let's get to listings and a few thank yous. I want to thank barberfinancial.com, Captain Paul, a very good friend of mine who's been sponsoring this from day one. If you have financial needs, just check out his website, barberfinancial.com. Send him a note and tell him I sent you. Barbarian Steakhouse, thank you. Oh my, it's delicious in there. I've been there for years. They treated me like an adult when I wasn't one. And I still go there all the time. It opened in 1959. And it's so clean. I don't know how you clean a place that's been open since 1959. I love the place. The ambiance is awesome. And the food is amazing. The service is excellent. Thank you. 7 Elm Street, Barbarian Steakhouse. And Patreon, thank you to everyone who donates $5, $10, $20 a month. Every bit helps. And thanks to my producer, JJ Brown, because he's a cool guy and he makes this a lot of fun for me. I hope it's fun for you. Let's get to the clubs. Lula Lounge, Son de Lula tonight. Son de Lula. This is a fantastic trio. It will make you happy while you eat. It's a band over dinner, but I saw them a couple weeks ago and I just love them. I'm going back. I'll be there tonight to see Son de Lula. They're on at 7:30 to 8:30. Cafe Cubano plays after that. Bring your dancing shoes. Saturday, they have Alto Voltage and DJ Santiago. Bring your dancing shoes. On Tuesday, Red Hot Ramble has a Mardi Gras party. If you're a fan of New Orleans, you will love Red Hot Ramble. 26th, Speaker Slam. Now, this is more TED Talks than stand-up comedy, but it's clever and it's cool and it makes you brainy. The theme this week is purpose. So Speaker Slam, purpose. And then on the 27th, the Shuffle Demons have a release party for Crazy Time. This record came out just a little while ago. I think it's the official release, this concert. And man, seeing the Shuffle Demons at Lula Lounge, that just sounds like a great idea. At Jazz Bistro, Colin Hunter, my buddy, is there tonight with the Joe Seeley Quartet. I'll be popping by to see them later too. Joe Seeley is without Colin Hunter on Saturday. He'll be with his usual gang with Daniel Barnes on drums and Paul Novotny on bass and Allison Young, not just on sax, but probably on some vocals as well. So that's happening on Saturday. And Sunday, Braun, Blonde, and Beyond. Remember Addie Braun? She was on my show last week. If you haven't seen it, you can go into the files there on YouTube or jamesb.ca and you can find out all about Addie Braun. A little bit of classical, a little bit of jazz, and a whole lot of cabaret happening at Jazz Bistro on Sunday. Wednesday is the Jazz Jam. It's innately inclusive. Bring your instrument, come sit in. If you're a pianist, he'll let you play on the piano for a little bit probably. So go down and check it out and you will have a fun time. And if you don't play music, just go down. It's $10. Just go down and hear some great tunes. Eddie Bullen and Quincy Bullen are there on Thursday. This dynamic duo, they're father and son. Everybody knows and loves Eddie Bullen. Quincy, well, he's all grown up now. He's a fine young man and he's feisty and they're going to play piano against each other and it's going to be really exciting. Terry Parker and Free Spirits doing the music of Mary Lou Williams and Jerry Allen. Terry Parker's a wonderful keyboard player and pianist, so she's bringing her band there on Friday. And moving over now to Home Smith Bar. Reg Schwager and Don Thompson are going to be performing there tonight. Reg, one of the world's great guitar players. Don Thompson, serious multi-instrumentalist. I'm assuming he'll be mostly on bass, but he'll probably tickle the ivories, play a little piano as well. And that's 7:30 to 10:30 tonight at the Old Mill in Home Smith Bar. Chris Gale is over there with his saxophone. He's joined by Matt Newton, Pat Collins, Ted Warren. This is happening on Saturday. Matt on piano, Pat on bass, Ted on drums, and of course Chris Gale, the man who's been hosting the Rex Jazz Jams for many years. But it's nice to see him like stretch out and have his own band and just do his own thing for a night. So that'll be cool. That's Saturday. Wednesday, John McMurtry is there. He plays a whole lot of sax and a little clarinet. And Peter Hill, Chris Banks, and Glenn Anderson join him. And then on Thursday the 27th, a guy who plays a whole lot of clarinet and a little bit of sax, Bob DeAngelis, will be there. So lots going on at the Homesmith Bar. Then Hughes Room Live, Western Swing Authority. That's on Friday. They are a serious swing band, obviously, because they're an authority. If you love Western Swing, get down there tonight to Hughes Room Live. Tomorrow night, Glendale One. Fascinating story about this band. They went to Glendale together. They never saw each other for 30 years. They rekindled and said, hey, why don't we jam? And they've been jamming for 13 years once a week. They love the music of Lennon and McCartney, but they are not a Beatles tribute band. They do things their own way. And one of the members of the band is this guy, Gordon Smith. He'll be with us in a minute. Okay, Sunday, Jim Beard, John Harrington. That sounds familiar. Well, they played with Steely Dan. They're there on Sunday. Monday, The Sweetest Noise, a birthday celebration of Justin Haynes. Now, Justin Haynes passed away last year, and his friends are getting together to have a celebration of life. Tanya Gill, Lisa Alameno, Andrew Downing, Kevin Turcotte, the list goes on and on. He had a lot of musician friends. He was a great musician himself. So it'll be bittersweet with a great soundtrack. And then Wednesday, Blues Party with Danny Marks. Jazz FM donors donated for this in the last campaign. He's got Jenny Ty and Paul Reddick and Allison Young and a whole bunch of blues greats all joining him on stage. If you need information, I don't think you can go to Hughes Room for that. I think you go to jazz.fm and find out if there are tickets left and how to get those. But everything else is at hughesroomlive.com. Now, let's get to Glenn Smith, the FX man. He has done effects for, as I said earlier, pretty famous movies. Most Oliver Stone films. The one I always think of is Anthony Hopkins turning into Nixon. That's just amazing. But also, how about X-Men and Rebecca Romijn Stamos and that blue ensemble? Right? Okay, let's go talk to him right now. Gordon Smith, coming right up. Gord, nice to see you, my friend. Now, we're going to go through some music, some stuff you've worked on with Don Dixon, but I want to start with makeup because that's how people know you. Your book, your double volume book about your career, is one of the most interesting reads ever. What made you want to write this book?
I had to tell my side of the story because my side of the story was being told by other people very wrongly, sort of a thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Because you
were critical. I had to lay it down. When you get kicked down the stairs by your own industry and your own colleagues, you're obliged then to lay out your side of the story. And it's not a bittersweet sort of a thing. It's not a bitter thing.
No, it is bittersweet because there's a sweetness to it.
Yeah, because my career was indeed a renegade career outside of the makeup industry. I never claimed to be a makeup artist. My approach, some of the very first time I started, the very first jobs I did, they were because I saw this huge hole in the film industry that the makeup artist was not, the makeup industry could not and had no interest in filling.
Right. And we're not talking Frankenstein makeup from the old days. We're talking effects. Yeah.
Yeah. Very natural. Yeah. We took a naturalistic approach. You know, I look at a movie and if I don't see very many men, no, maybe these days you do, in full makeup. But in the movies, it was totally acceptable to see everybody in full makeup. That comes from the 40s and the 50s and the television era and stuff like that, where camera couldn't pick it up and blah, blah, blah. Well, they got this hangover. And in the prosthetics world, where where prosthetics were made of foam, like kind of furniture foam kind of thing, and they're completely opaque, you have to completely make it up. So therefore, that person now is opaque. They're not translucent like you or I, and to me that was a huge hole. Well, you know,
how do you make it look real?
Somebody's got to fill that hole. So I spent my entire career filling that hole and solving that problem from the makeup side all the way up through prosthetics, and now the whole world uses my technology.
Right.
And that pissed off the elite like crazy. It was quite sad. I honestly didn't think so, because I've been followed all my career. I speak all around the world, you know. I'm like, everybody follows what Gord's doing, and blah blah blah. But
Right,
soon,
makeup artists that I know were really impressed that I was going to be talking to you right now. They're watching this because they're like, well, of course we know who that is. That's the guy. That's the guy who started all this. Early days, I guess. I mean, really early. You did a film with John Trent. Was that your? That wasn't.
Trent?
Yeah, that probably wasn't a effects though, right? That was a short film. Here, I'm pretty sure I scribbled it down.
I don't know that name.
It was really a long time ago. 1980, Middle Age Crazy.
Oh, yeah, that was my very first film with Anne Margaret. I got to see Anne Margaret in a corset set. Oh, I tell you, I could have died and gone to heaven.
Yeah.
It was great, yeah. Because I have a classical education in the theater, and that was I'd just come up from the States. I had a nervous breakdown early because I lost my theater. I had my own theater for a while, and that was lovely. But as Canadian endeavors like that go,
Yeah.
you know, here today, gone tomorrow.
Yeah, you went from actually studying theater and having your own theater company to diving into film and doing makeup.
Yeah, and I did that mostly because I have a blood phobia. And it was because I started with a picture called Threshold with Donald Sutherland and Mayor Winningham, and they asked me to reproduce 5 different forms of open heart surgery. Now, I'm just this tall, lanky, goofy song and dance boy from, and why they called me was just like right around the bend. And I told them, I says, you definitely have the wrong person. I've never, and they refused to believe me. When I told them, I said, you're going to be paying me how much? Really? I'll do anything for that amount of money. I said, but I'll be lying on the floor. I mean, literally lying on the floor. And they refused to believe me. And
did you get over your blood phobia from having to do jobs like that?
Yes. No, you don't ever get over it. It just compartmentalizes it, and so it doesn't frighten you anymore.
Right.
You know, I've hit the floor since, but I understand it now. And I understand that the control element was doctors. If I was in, hell, I've done open heart surgery on dogs, and I've had arteries spurt across the room and stuff like that. I've watched numerous open heart surgery on people and stuff like that. And
you had to in order to do the film.
Because there were no photographs, there was no video, there was no anything. If you can imagine having open heart surgery and there's a guy with a camera going, excuse me, I need a good shot of this. Like, excuse me, it's just not going to fucking happen. And so the research was a huge big deal for me. And then we did the movie, and we broke every single rule in the special effects makeup industry. We used materials that didn't exist. We created our own materials, everything. And it was such an enlightening, it was like, well, geez. There's a hole here.
It looked real on camera, right?
Totally real.
Yeah.
Nobody believes there's any special effects in the movie to this day. In
Right.
fact, if you look it up, there's no category for special makeup effects. There's no category at all. My name's not so like it's like they just wanted to pretend that it was
real.
Pretend it was all real.
Now, David Cronenberg. For people who don't know your work, the easiest thing to say right away is Videodrome. Because people immediately understand the effects in that with the gun melting onto the hand and all that stuff. Yeah. Amazing. What was it like?
I didn't do that one.
Nope.
No. I didn't do that one. I did David. I did was called Twins.
Dead Ringers.
Dead Ringers.
Mm-hmm.
And that wasn't a good experience for me. That was a good learning experience for me, which was really depressing because it was like I liked David and being Canadian and all that kind of stuff was really cool. But David's one of these guys that just wants it his own way, and I'm a guy who, because I have to deliver the goods, I have to design it in such a way that I know I can actually deliver. Just because you say you want it done that way doesn't mean it can be done that way. You know, so yeah. I offered him designs that would have cost a tenth of what he wanted and virtually no risk factor. But because it was David Cronenberg, I went, well, the guy has to know what he's talking about, so I've got to be wrong. And I almost blew myself right out of the industry on that, because the things that I was right. I was like, no, you can't do that. He goes, yes, you can. No, you can't. And you think, sure enough, no, you couldn't. The shots are in the movie, and it's all fine and stuff like that, but not to my standards by any stretch.
Mm-hmm. What about Oliver Stone? You did a bunch of stuff with him.
I did most of Oliver's movies, and that is how we stayed in the industry. We would have backed out of the industry had we not met Oliver. And he gave us those life opportunities, and those films were not just films, they were important comments, historical.
Yep.
His purpose was huge, and we were part of that. And he gave us he respected every head of department.
Right.
He gave us all our opportunities. Bob Richardson, the cinematographer, his first DOP.
So this is movies like Platoon,
Salvador, Platoon, Born the 4th of July,
Natural Born Killers, Nixon,
Born
right?
Killers.
Wow.
Yeah, and that relationship for Ginny and I was and still is probably the coolest, most important influences in our lives.
Tell me about Nixon.
Nixon was
Of course, the movie Nixon, not the man. Yeah.
Nixon was sad in a way. It was part. Oliver lost pretty much his whatever money he had. He put like 20 million, I think, or something like that into the picture, and virtually nobody saw it. I asked a lot of people, and how did you think of the movie? Oh, it was horrible. And then, did you see it? No, because they were sick and tired. Americans were sick and tired of Oliver telling them they were wrong
about history or something.
And they'd sort of had it up to here. But Nixon was right in the throes of me developing the early stages of the silicone gel technology. So it was literally the second test on film we'd ever done. We did a full prosthetic on Anthony Hopkins, and Anthony Hopkins is the coolest guy on the planet. For an actor to actor,
right?
Oh, it was an honor to be with this guy. Anyway.
Well, yeah, I can imagine how much time you'd have to spend, because that makeup job was incredible stuff.
Well, it was, the truth is that we did a full character makeup, and it was really great, but we were still premature. We didn't really understand color, proper coloration and stuff like that. And this is the second time we tried it in the history of film.
Mm-hmm.
And Oliver liked it, but it was a little caricatured. And Oliver said, "This is fantastic. We'll make it like a black comedy kind of a thing, and here will be this Nixon." Hoskins has a big round head. Nixon's got a tall, skinny head,
almost like a neck that continues.
Completely different.
Yeah.
And and they had Bob and I had decided. Outvoted Bob Richardson on the cinematography.
Mm-hmm.
I said to Oliver, "No, we're not going to. It's a bad idea to do this makeup the way we've designed it, because it's going to take too long, and Anthony's in every single shot, so it's going to cost you a fortune to have this thing where that's Anthony Hopkins, and it may take another 5-10 seconds for the audience to buy it, but that's one of the best actors in the world. If he wants to be Richard Nixon, he'll be Richard Nixon, and he will convince that audience. So all we need to really do is give him his teeth, his eyes, give him the right wig, and he can do it on his own without spending all this money." I was talking myself. I do this.
You're talking yourself out of money.
Half of the jobs I talked myself out of because the risk factor was too high for the film.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, well, mostly for the film.
For the film, the amount of time it would take to make him into that every single day.
Is it going to work? People say prosthetic makeup is like, oh, you just do prosthetic makeup. Well, I'm telling you, that's not an easy thing to do. I worked in my studio with Evan Penny, who is probably one of the best realist sculptors in the world. But it took somebody with that ability to make the illusion work. Like, you've got to be the best in the world to pull off that, because you blow it up 60 feet by 30 feet, and it's supposed to look like a real guy and not a guy who's got rubber all over his head.
Right. Yep.
You know. So
how about Mimic, Guillermo del Toro?
He had done everything in L.A., and he had a failure with a character called the Overcoat Man. So he came to us to do that Overcoat Man, because everything was mechanical that they built in L.A., and we decided he wanted to do this other character as a real person in a costume. So that's what we did for him.
What an interesting guy. He actually has a place here in Toronto.
Yeah, he lives here now. I mean, he's a makeup artist.
Yeah.
That's where he comes from.
Wow.
He and his wife made a little short horror movie in Mexico. And it worked. It had a good beginning and middle and end, and everybody thought, oh, you're a filmmaker too, and now he's the biggest thing since sliced toast.
Now, you're a lot younger than the late, great George Romero, but you kind of remind me of him in some charming ways. Did you ever get to meet him or work with him? What an amazing guy he was. He had a great sense of humor, didn't seem to take anything too serious. Interesting. I didn't see him anywhere in your CV, but I thought maybe you crossed paths at some point.
No, it's a very small little industry in reality, I mean, the mere fact that I had a successful career living and staying in Toronto,
right,
working at a Hollywood, was just unheard of. That illustrates how small it is. I only competed against maybe 4 people in my entire career.
Right.
There were no special effects studios in Toronto.
Right.
They were like mechanical things. People make things rain and blow up and stuff like that.
What about X-Men? What did you do for X-Men?
We designed all the special characters, Mystique.
Mystique was my favorite.
Wolverine, and all that. And that was the first, for the Mystique character, Bryan Singer, he wanted her nude. It was, I want her nude, and I'm going, it's a PG-13. What are you?
Rebecca remains Stamos nude. Other people might want her nude too, but
I wanted her nude. But I said, if you can get this by, and the producers are going, absolutely no way. It's not going to happen. It can't happen. Blah 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 blah. And but for me, it was an opportunity of a lifetime, because we had the technology up to a point where we could actually pull it off. I could completely cover her body in prosthetics and use no glue. They stuck by themselves. Still to this day, my industry does not accept that. I've been doing it for the last 10 years of my career. Eliminated glue entirely out, which I think is a respectful and kind thing to do to an actor.
Absolutely.
Because and I use the reference, if you saw somebody on the street, his face was all covered in glue, you'd take him to the hospital. Well, in the movie industry, just like slather that on there, and just,
right.
And then they use horrible thinners and stuff like that to get it off. As an actor, for me, that was the greatest, the most important challenge in my special effects thing, was to eliminate those things that made the job for the actor horrible. Yeah,
because that's actually physically dangerous to have glue on you for the entire shoot of a film.
And also, it slams your face up. But people are concerned, and actors are supposed to have very subtle movements in their face, especially in film. Well, if you take that all away when you cover your face in glue, you don't have any of those subtle movements. So no matter what effort you put into the prosthetic that you put on the top, it's never going to look right.
Right. Yep.
And my industry to this day doesn't buy that.
Right.
I have never met anyone who has attempted it. They just think it's crazy. Even Dick Smith, who's the father of the industry, when we first developed it, and I called him so excited, I'm going, Dick, you won't believe this, because I didn't believe it either. In my world, you don't trust anything until you've actually done it and it actually works, and you've put it on film and it still works,
Right.
and the actor doesn't want to punch you out, and that's
your gauge right there.
yeah, that's the gauge.
So here's a nerd question. So Hugh Jackman,
Mm-hmm.
and then I forget his stuntman's last name. It was Taylor. Taylor was the body double or the kind of stuntman for Hugh Jackman. Did you have to make for both people? Like you'd have to make whatever you did to Wolverine, you'd have to do it for his stunt double as well as for the actor? Or was it the same?
Not the Wolverine. You're talking Sabretooth.
Sorry, Sabretooth.
The Sabretooth character.
Sabretooth.
Yes, they actually wore exactly the same prosthetic.
Yeah, because they were the same size.
They were the
Those
same
two
size.
guys
They
were
the
exactly
same size, but
right. It was Sabretooth.
Also,
right.
also one of the cool things about my approach to the thing, you can take a prosthetic that I've made for you, and I can put it on me, and it'll still work. It changes. You can move, change shape and stuff like that. It's a
Wow.
people don't buy it.
One more quick one because everyone knows Total Recall. Was that shot here or was that shot
That
somewhere
was a
else?
television series.
That was the version, the Canadian version of it. Yeah.
When Miles Dale was producing that.
Yeah.
A lovely man. I generally didn't like television too much, because film was. I had more creative control with film. Directors and stuff had more creative control. Television is very contained.
And you have to go move quicker. It's not the same budget, not the same.
Yeah. And it's a lot of work and a lot of time and money to do the kind of work that we were doing.
So you did all of this for many years. All the industry knew who you were, and then somehow, what was the? I remember somewhere in your book you said that people just said, if you don't move down to Hollywood, you can kiss any awards goodbye. You're supposed to be here in our community.
My best friend told me that.
Yeah?
He says, you deserve whatever happens to you because you never moved to Hollywood. You never became part of the family.
Yeah.
And I just told him I would never do that. I don't like Hollywood. I don't like the people in Hollywood. I don't like the backstabbing bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
I'm here for the work and the art of it. I'm not here for the politics. I really don't care.
Yeah.
But at the end of but I fell victim to it.
Right. So in your book, you don't pull any punches. I've never read a book quite like this. So you really decided, I'm staying in Canada, and have you pretty much retired from the business? Are you still doing?
I'm totally retired from the business. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So when
I use the word retired, but I didn't retire.
Right.
I was blackballed.
Right.
It was as soon as the technology was successful first in Europe, and then at the end it became successful in Hollywood. And I've even had conversations with some of the biggest Stan Winston studio and stuff like that. He says, Gord, you're just like a god in Hollywood. And then, but as it turns around, it was just too much, I think, for them to accept that some Canadian goof, with a name like Smith, probably not his real name, made this big of a change in the industry. And I've been retired now probably 7, 8 years or something like that, and still the industry has not caught up to what the technology we handed them. Like, they won't buy, it has to fit into what they used to do. They will not accept it for what it is.
To the chagrin of many actors, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Right.
But time will evolve, and time will solve,
Yeah. You were working with Don Dixon, helping with sound of all things. I mean, from an actor who owned a theater company to doing makeup, and now all of a sudden you're doing sound with Don Dixon of the Artists Asylum. Those days when I first met you, I didn't know all your background. All I knew is you and Don created a vibe and a sound inside of a recording studio, kind of, again, revolutionary and strange.
It was quite. I'm a guy who always looks at whether it's the theater, the music industry, or whatever, and if there's a way to make it better or simpler or more cost-effective without sacrificing quality or enhancing the quality, then I want to get involved. And I did that with the head Hendrickson. Cliff Hendrickson, who designed the L1 systems for Bose. They're the whole different kind of amplification.
Yeah.
And
Perfectly simple.
Perfectly simple. And that started with when I turned 50. I had a big party at the studio, and my high school buddies come over, and they go, "Gordon, we should put a band together," you know. And I'm going, "Give me a fucking break! I haven't played or sang or anything like that in 30 years. So like, putting a band together?" I said, "You just mean I've got a lovely, great big studio, and you guys want to put a band together?" So I go, "Well, you can use a studio, put a band together." And we started doing that. And I started to learn how to play again. But it became immediately obvious, because we were using amplification, that I couldn't hear myself. I couldn't identify individuals, because it was all coming out of a PA system, and we couldn't control anything without a third party actually doing that control for us. And that made kind of no sense to me, or it was frustrating, because I wasn't going to have a rehearsal and have to hire some guy to make me sound so I could actually hear myself. So I was ready to quit. And one of the guys in the band handed me a thing from the Bose Corporation, and from this L1 system, and I read it, and every single problem I had was listed on this piece of paper and solved by the use of things. So I immediately went and bought one of them.
Just one?
And tested it for myself, and sure enough, all of those problems disappeared. So, and then I never accepted that. Like, I'm not a fool in regards. I spent my life, and then I called Cliff, who had done 10 years of research and development for it before it went to market, and I said, "Where's the guy with the baseball bat?" There's always a guy with the baseball. Like, the technology is cool, but it actually doesn't do this part. He said, "There's no guy with a baseball bat." "Who are you?" He says, "You're the first person. The Bose Corporation doesn't buy into this." He said, "You're the first person we've talked to who sees the technology the same way we do, who invented it."
Mm-hmm.
And it was to separate all the musicians with their own amplification system, put it behind them, which is completely out of it's bananas. Why would you put it behind them? You know, that doesn't work, but it does work. Well, it works spectacularly. So you separate all the musician sound with the least amount of information coming out of the speakers. So when I look at you and you're playing, your sound's coming from you, for your direction, and mine's coming. So the actual act of playing, which most musicians do in their rooms, in their whatever, they get around in a circle and they play, and that's, you know, great. All of a sudden now you can do that. So the great problem of trying to record live music, which is very difficult because of all the triple amplification systems, back systems, and there's sound all over the fucking place.
Mm-hmm.
So it was always very expensive and almost impossible to record quality reproduction of what you hear. But with this new system, it was easy as snot. It was like,
the very first time I worked with you, I actually remember saying, "This is hard for me because I don't have my voice coming at me from a couple of speakers." And you said, "Well, but can you hear yourself?" I said, "Yeah, but my whole career,
yes,
a monitor is pointed at my face, yes, with my voice in it. Mm-hmm. Now it's behind me, it's part of me." Mm-hmm. But then once we recorded, you said, "Just try recording." And we did, and it was absolutely effortless. I've never experienced that before.
And the whole reason we involved you and your colleagues, for me anyway, mm-hmm, was to test whether I was right or not. And I was like, I'm not going to do with minor people. I want the very best musicians. Dave
Young, Don Franks, Bernie Sinensky, you had a whole bunch of them.
And right? I said, let them, we'll just set it up. And you know, I just backed away. I was sitting in a chair back in the corner. I did not involve myself in it in any way. The test was just bring in those people, sit them in their chairs at their instruments, and have them play.
Yeah.
And they will either go, it'll take 5 minutes, and they'll go, "What the fuck is this bullshit?" I'm out of here.
Yeah.
Or they won't notice it at all.
Right, which they didn't. Most people just said the sound is amazing in here, but they didn't actually understand how it was being amplified.
Yeah, and they all got it right away, and they loved it. And the post mix was nothing because all of the production was done live,
right.
as musicians want to and love to do, is produce in the moment. You know, that's the best part of music, is that producing thing in the moment. You know, I want to go there, so I'm going there. You dive off the diving board. And,
now, with all of those skills we've just talked about, on top of all of that, you're back into music again, and you have a show coming up.
I do, at Asylum. It's our 11th year. And these are all, but like, I never got into music like, I put myself through university as a folk singer. That's how I paid for my education and everything like that. But those were the days when you could do that. All you needed was a guitar and a girlfriend that pissed you off, and you could write a song.
Yeah, right. Yep.
So, but these guys with Glendale One, they're Glendale One because we all lived in Brampton, and that was our phone exchange when we were all in about grade 7. So we've all known each other that long. So there's no ego. There's no, you know, like Gord Smith. I've got an Order of Canada, and I'm a big shot in the movie. No. I'm just like Goofy Gord.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like, you know, a guy across the street, his mom still calls me Goofy Gord. You know.
And so you play guitar and sing in this band?
Yeah.
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 And how many? What, 5-piece?
3 guitars and 5-piece.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
What? How do you guys, when you guys get together? Is it very frequent? Is it like a monthly thing that you?
No, we get together every week. It's like a book club.
Beautiful!
It really is our salvation. We're very good friends, and we get together, and we've picked a logic to a subject matter to allow us to move forward. And we use the Beatles because they've got such a spectacular catalog. But we not for a moment would ever, in fact, it's a rule. If it sounds like the Beatles, the way we do it, we can't do it. So we make it our own. We put a bit of a jazzy spin to it, or a country spin to it, or a swing kind of a thing to it, and turn it and make it our own.
Yeah.
And if it's successful, then and it's a lovely hook because when we play, audiences will go, I've never heard that, but I still know that song. How is that possible? And you can get it all the way to the second verse before, and you'll have somebody go, wait a minute, I get it.
I know what that is.
I know what that is.
Yeah.
You know? So it's fun. It's fun that way. It's challenging for us, but it makes it fun. But we would never, we don't, the idea of being a cover band is just, no, we can't do that.
Right, you can do their material, but you're no cover band.
And I find it really difficult to cover the concept of a. If another person does another person, it's never the same. I don't know how the effort to make it the same would be. I don't know. I guess it's a whole other. It's a whole other
skill.
It's a whole other thing.
Yeah.
But it must be extremely difficult because that's a beautiful thing about music. You take one piece of music and have 5 guys play it. And there's kind of 5 versions of that.
Yeah.
And that's what makes that guy great and that guy not so good and this guy really stinks.
So I never knew the Glendale history to that name. That's a good reason to have that name.
Yeah, the only other name we were going to go was Free Cold Beer, and we figured we couldn't afford that.
Have an amazing show. I'm going to be there because I'm such a fan of your makeup, your film, and now the stuff you did with Don Dixon. So I've got to see you on stage. This is going to be great fun.
Yeah, that would be great.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Right on.
Thanks.
All right, Gordon Smith. What a cool guy. Listen, you can get his book. Ta-da, ta-da, ta-da. You can get his book online, and you can also get this book online. I'm Not Naked Anymore, Sonia Cote. She is my guest next week. She is a singer, a dancer, an actress. Did I say dancer? We're going to find out all about her life. And until next week, thank you for joining me. Join me next Friday for another Jaymz B. Vodcast. See ya.